It was 3:07 a.m. when the sound started again. First, the sharp creak of the floorboards. Then, the dragging. Slow, relentless, as if someone were pulling something heavy down the hallway. I already knew what would come next, but still, every cell in my body begged for it to be just the wind. It wasn't. The phone screen showed the same time it always did when it happened, 3:07. Clara wasn't in bed. I sat up slowly, trying to steady my breathing. The room was bathed in a bluish gloom, the hallway light leaking through the crack under the door. The sound continued, coming from below, from the living room floor. I grabbed my phone and opened the security camera app. The footage shook slightly, grainy in the dark. And there she was, in the middle of the room, back to the camera, completely still. Her hair covered her face, her arms hanging loosely at her sides. In front of her, the mirror. For a moment, the image froze. The light flickered. When the focus returned, Clara was no longer facing away. She was looking straight into the camera. Her face pale, her lips twisted into an unnatural smile, too wide. My heart pounded. I hit the record button, but the image went black. Only the sound remained, the dragging noise and a raspy breath, almost like a muffled laugh. I got out of bed. Each step on the floor sounded too loud, as if the house itself were listening. The air was heavy, and that metallic scent, cold and sweet, seemed to seep from the walls. I went down the stairs with the phone trembling in my hand, filming the darkness. When I reached the living room, she was gone. Only Liam's rattle lay on the rug, rocking on its own, making a soft sound that made my stomach twist. I turned toward the hallway. That's when I saw the reflection in the mirror. Clara, standing behind me.
Hi, I'm Mia Lee, and welcome to Sketching Stories. New cases every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So make how you're subscribed, hit that like button, and let's begin today's case. The year was 2021. New York felt different. The once vibrant streets seemed to have lost their rhythm, and inside Daniel and Clara's small Manhattan apartment, the noise of neighbors, sirens, and car horns echoed like a daily torture. Daniel spent hours in front of his computer, trying to focus on the web design projects that kept them afloat, while Clara juggled the endless demands of caring for their newborn son, Liam. His cries blended with the city's constant hum, and on some days, it was impossible to tell which of the three, Daniel, Clara, or the baby, was more exhausted. Clara used to say that the sound of Manhattan was like the ocean, constant, impossible to silence. But now, that ocean was drowning them. She spoke with a faraway look, dark circles under her eyes that hadn't been there before the pregnancy. "He needs silence, love, and so do we," she would say, rocking Liam in her arms. It was during one of those sleepless nights that Daniel found the listing. A house in Long Island, just over an hour from Manhattan, 3 bedrooms, a big backyard, and a porch overlooking a patch of woods. The price was absurdly low, so low it looked like a typo. The description simply read, "Quiet environment, perfect for families who value peace and isolation." He smiled when he read the word isolation. It was exactly what they were looking for. Daniel reached out to the owners, Sam and Michelle. He was a retired real estate agent, she a visual artist. The conversation flowed with an oddly natural ease. Michelle mentioned they were tired of the quiet, that they missed the energy of the city. "The house is beautiful, but the silence, sometimes it's heavy," she said with a laugh. That sounded nervous, though Daniel didn't think much of it at the time. That's when he came up with the idea. A temporary exchange. Sam and Michelle could stay in their Manhattan apartment, and Daniel and Clara would try life in Long Island for a month. "If everyone adjusts, we can talk about something more permanent," he offered. Sam thought it was brilliant, and within a week, everything was arranged. The move was a mix of relief and anxiety. Clara packed their bags with an excitement Daniel hadn't seen in months. Liam, blissfully unaware, slept peacefully as the taxi crossed the bridge eastward. When they saw the house for the first time, Daniel was speechless. It was simple but inviting, surrounded by tall trees and bathed in golden light filtering through the leaves. The city noise was gone. All they could hear was the wind. That first night, they sat on the porch as the sun set behind the treetops. Clara took a deep breath and said, with a tired smile, "I think we found what we needed." In that moment, Daniel believed her. The silence felt like a gift whose price they had yet to discover.
The first week in Long Island felt like a dream. The silence was almost sacred, and the air carried a freshness Daniel hadn't felt since childhood. Clara smiled more, and Liam slept deeply, as if the place itself were rocking him to sleep. During the day, the sound of wind rustling through the trees and birds singing was all they could hear. At night, only the faint whisper of the woods and the steady ticking of the clock on the wall. They began to build a new routine. Daniel worked in the home office, a small room with wide windows overlooking the backyard. Clara spent her days between the garden and Liam's room, and in the afternoons, they took walks around the neighborhood, which was almost deserted. The houses seemed asleep, some with curtains perpetually drawn. Occasionally, they'd see a distant neighbor wave, but no one ever came close. Clara said the isolation was exactly what she needed. "Time moves slower here," she remarked one morning while making coffee. Daniel agreed. He felt a kind of hypnotic peace. But little by little, that calm began to turn into something heavier. On the seventh night, he woke up to a sound he couldn't identify, a muffled, dragging noise coming from downstairs. It sounded like something heavy being pulled slowly across the wooden floor. He looked at the clock. 3:07. He hesitated to get up. Then the sound stopped, as suddenly as it had begun. The next day, he decided not to mention it to Clara. Probably just the wind, he thought. But the noise returned, always at the same time, and gradually, other things began to change. Clara, whose eyes had regained their spark, became irritable. She cried over the smallest things. Sometimes Daniel would find her standing by the window, staring into the garden as if waiting for something. "Do you hear that?" she'd ask. He would say no, and she'd just shake her head, confused. The smell was the next sign. A bittersweet, metallic, cold scent. It appeared out of nowhere and vanished in seconds. Daniel noticed it for the first time in the living room while rocking Liam in his arms. The air grew thick, almost tangible. Clara noticed it too. "Smells like rusty iron," she said, wrinkling her nose. The next morning, they found something that chilled Daniel to the bone. Liam's small rabbit rattle, which usually stayed in his crib, was in the living room, standing upright on the rug, perfectly balanced. Clara froze. Daniel tried to laugh it off, saying it must have rolled somehow. But inside, he felt panic rising. It made no sense. That night, they slept holding each other. The hallway light left on. Neither of them spoke about the 3:07 sound, but the silence between them was almost as frightening as the noise itself. The nights had become unbearable. Every creak of the floor sounded like a warning. Every shadow seemed to hide something watching in silence. Clara no longer slept well, and Daniel too had begun to feel the weight of that place pressing on him. One sleepless night, he decided to do something rational, or so he told himself: install security cameras. He said it was just for precaution, but deep down, he wanted proof. He needed to know if what they were feeling was real, or if they were losing their minds together. He bought a set of cameras with night vision and motion sensors. One went in the living room, another in the hallway, and a third, discreetly, in Liam's room. Clara protested, saying it felt invasive, but Daniel insisted. "If there's nothing, at least we'll have peace," he said. She reluctantly agreed. The first night, nothing unusual happened. The footage showed only the curtains swaying with the wind and the faint rustle of the trees outside. But on the second night, at 3:07 a.m., the motion alarm light turned red. The next morning, Daniel sat at his desk to review the recordings. Liam was asleep, and Clara hadn't woken up yet. He fast-forwarded the footage in silence, his heart pounding as the digital clock crept closer to the marked time. Then he saw it. The living room camera captured Clara slowly coming down the stairs. Her bare feet dragged across the floor. Her eyes were open but empty. Her face was expressionless, her body rigid. She stopped in front of the mirror and stood there, completely still, for many minutes. Then she turned her head toward the camera, as if she knew she was being watched. The smile that spread across her face wasn't human. It was a strange, tense stretch, almost painful. He replayed the footage, unable to believe it. He switched to the camera in Liam's room. At 3:19, Clara climbed the stairs, entered the nursery, and stood over the crib. The baby didn't move, didn't cry, didn't react. She remained there, motionless, for 15 minutes. He turned off the monitor. His hands were trembling. He waited for sunrise before waking Clara. When he showed her the video, she went pale and began to cry silently. I don't remember any of that," she whispered. The next night, Clara begged him to turn off the cameras. She said she didn't want to see what shouldn't be seen. But Daniel left the system running, without telling her. He needed to be sure. The clock struck 3:07, and again the sound began, the heavy dragging downstairs. He lay still in bed, pretending to sleep, his heart pounding so loudly it felt like it would give him away. Then he felt the mattress dip slightly beside him. Clara got up. The morning after the footage, Clara couldn't stop crying. Daniel tried to comfort her, but her fear seemed to come from somewhere deep. During breakfast, her hands trembled. "I'm not that person," she said between sobs. "If something made me get up, I want to know what it was." It was Clara who suggested seeking medical help. She scheduled an appointment with a psychiatrist named Dr. Elena, recommended by a childhood friend. The doctor received them with a calm voice and understanding eyes. She listened as Clara described the episodes, the sleepless nights, the exhaustion. Postpartum fatigue, she diagnosed, with the serene confidence of someone who had seen it countless times before. The body and mind blur together. It's like the brain goes through a temporary collapse. She prescribed light medication to help Clara sleep and recommended absolute rest. That night, Clara took the first pill and fell asleep within minutes. Her sleep seemed deep, peaceful. Daniel stayed awake for a while, watching her face under the blue glow of the digital clock. For the first time in weeks, he felt genuine relief. For 2 days, everything was perfect. No sounds at 3:07, no metallic smell, no strange movements on the cameras. Liam slept better than ever, and the air in the house felt lighter. Clara laughed again, cooked, played with the baby. Daniel began to believe it had all been a mix of stress and imagination. On the third night, he turned off the cameras. He wanted them to live normally again. The silence felt almost comforting, and the sound of crickets outside lulled him to sleep early. But the relief didn't last. At 3:07, the sound returned, a slow dragging, heavier than before. Daniel woke with a start. He looked to his side. Clara wasn't in bed. His heartbeat pounded in his throat. He got up slowly, trying not to make a sound. He went down the stairs, and there she was, standing in the middle of the living room. Her eyes open, but empty. The same stiff smile, but this time something worse. Her face seemed distorted, as if her body were struggling against something invisible. The mirror in front of her reflected a shadow behind her, a shape that didn't match the position of her body. He whispered her name. "Clara." She turned her head toward him in a sharp, unnatural movement. The sound that came from her throat wasn't human. A hoarse moan, almost a hiss. Daniel stumbled back, terrified. For a moment he thought about running, but before he could move,
Clara collapsed to the floor, motionless. He carried her back to bed.
The morning broke with an unnatural silence. Clara slept deeply, exhausted. Daniel hadn't slept at all. He sat in the kitchen, staring at the kettle on the stove, trying to make sense of what their life had become. The house, once a refuge, had turned into a prison of whispers and unseen presences that revealed themselves only in fragments. As he prepared coffee, he noticed the drawer with the cutlery was stuck. He tugged once, twice, until it finally gave way with a sharp crack. The old wood shifted, revealing an empty space beneath. Curiosity overcame fatigue. He pulled out the lower drawer to see what was hidden there. That's when he saw it. A piece of yellowed paper taped to the back with brittle, aged adhesive. The note was falling apart, its edges eaten away by time. The handwriting was uneven, hurried, but still legible. Do not leave the downstairs windows open after sunset. Do not look at the mirror in the main bedroom after 2 a.m. At 3:07 a.m., if you wake up, do not speak. Do not make a sound. If you do, she will know you're trying to cheat in the game. And the baby is the wager. Daniel didn't wait another second. They packed in under an hour. Clara held Liam tightly, eyes filled with tears, glancing around as though the house were watching them back. Before leaving, Daniel turned the key in the lock and heard a faint click, like something inside had sealed itself again, waiting for the next fool to start the game anew. They told Sam and Michelle nothing, only that they couldn't adapt and wanted to return to Manhattan. The couple thanked them for the experience and wished them luck. During the drive, the silence felt different. Not the peace they had once sought, but a heavy silence, thick with memory and fear. Daniel gripped the wheel with sweaty hands, while Clara, beside him, kept looking out the rear window, as if expecting to see someone, or something, following them. That morning, they left Long Island behind. They returned to their old apartment in Manhattan with heavy hearts. Daniel and Clara were exhausted, not from the weight of the luggage, but from the fear they carried. They worried that Sam and Michelle, the couple who had stayed there during the exchange, might have left behind some kind of dark energy, or worse, something unseen that still lingered. As soon as they opened the door, a strange sense of relief washed over them. The air felt familiar, comforting. On the living room table sat a beautiful arrangement of fresh flowers left by Sam and Michelle, along with a simple note, "Thank you for trusting us. May this home remain a refuge." For a few days, everything went back to normal. No strange sounds, no metallic smell, no presents. Liam slept soundly, and Clara seemed finally at peace. A few weeks later, Clara's brother called. He had received a job offer in another state and needed to move quickly. "You know my apartment well, and it would be perfect for you guys now with the baby," he said. It was a more spacious place, still in New York, but in a quieter neighborhood, far from the city's constant noise. They decided to accept. It felt like a fresh start. They sold their old apartment, ironically to Sam and Michelle, who had fallen in love with it during their stay. On moving day, the couple showed up to sign the papers and handle a few details. Michelle seemed different, more cheerful. "We're doing great now. I think I finally managed to adapt." Clara smiled but asked gently, "Adapt to what exactly?" Michelle hesitated for a moment, then explained that they had moved into the Long Island house shortly before the exchange, and since then she had fallen into a strange depression without any apparent reason. She said it was like the place was draining my energy. Clara's eyes widened. The same thing happened to me. I started having restless sleep, nightmares, and I felt suffocated. Michelle gave a nervous laugh. "What a bizarre coincidence, isn't it?" Daniel and Sam exchanged a quick look. Sam seemed uneasy, as if he were holding something back. Daniel decided to probe. He asked casually if they ever found anything unusual in the house. A note, a symbol, anything out of place. Sam frowned. A note? No, why? Daniel told them about what they had discovered in the drawer, the rules, the specific hour, the warning about the game. Michelle went pale. Sam stayed silent for a few seconds, then said quietly, "We had strange experiences too. She'd wake up at night and stand in front of the mirror, but we thought it was just the medication." Clara looked at her, eyes filling with tears. "I started taking medication too. I thought I was losing my mind." No one spoke for a while. The distant sound of city traffic seemed far away, muffled, almost unreal. When they finally said goodbye, Michelle hugged Daniel tightly and whispered in his ear, "You did the right thing leaving that house. Sometimes silence isn't peace. It's a warning." Now tell me in the comments, do you ever wake up in the middle of the night for no reason? And if this case left you unsettled, wait until you hear what happened to Kim Ha-nul, the little Korean girl who disappeared inside her own school. See you in the next video.